I can't imagine he's actually going to make it to the 2024 elections. I just don't believe it.
You know what was kind of weird? What I saw the other day on Twitter, I saw an ad from Newsom for campaigns. So I'm like, what are you doing? What's the outcome of you raising money right now? It's not like you're, running for governor or you need to start raising money now. So what's this all about? So that clip, the ad I saw for 2 days of Newsom, that kind of made me think. I remember 4 years ago. I don't know if you remember this event. It's 4 years ago. And Joe Biden's not on Instagram at all. So he's not on Instagram. He's not doing anything. All of a sudden, Joseph Biden, Joe Biden's on Instagram. And I put a comment, first comment. All this means is he's running. Okay, this is pre him announcing that he's going to run.
Right.
And I'm boom. Because what's Joe Biden going to do on Instagram? Put a picture of who is, what he's doing, pictures with Hunter, pictures with his 7th granddaughter. You're not going to know what he's going to put up there, right? So when you see signs with Newsom doing that, there's something there, with whether these guys are planning for taking him out. I had Chris Cuomo on the podcast a couple weeks ago. And one of the things I remember during COVID, I don't know if you remember this, every day we would see Andrew Cuomo. Every day. And the conversation was, this guy's going to be the next president. Look how presidential he is. The vast difference between two guys from New York. One acts presidential, the other one doesn't. If Andrew ran today, he would be the president. And every day, we go on Facebook, he's doing this thing, he's eating. And then, okay, maybe this guy's going to do it. And he's on the show always with Chris, and they're doing their stuff. And okay, maybe this is going to happen. And then all of a sudden, his own party chose to eliminate him because he couldn't be controlled. So the thing about the Democratic Party sometimes, it could be both sides. I think if they choose to eliminate Biden, it's going to be 2, 3, 4 stories on what they're going to say. He's choosing to step away due to health. My wife and I had a conversation, Jill, we're going to spend more time with the grandkids. And if he doesn't do it, then they're going to come out and they're going to say, listen, man, we got a lot of dirt on you, bro. You got to kind of step away if you want to protect your legacy. You're 81. We're going to have somebody else come in here. Notice Newsom's been edifying you and propping you up, and Newsom trashes DeSantis, and he's edifying you. This is a way of Newsom to come out if he thinks, because I think Newsom thought it's going to be him and DeSantis, because DeSantis' camp maybe thought he's going to fall out, Trump's going to drop out, and Newsom's maybe thinking about that as well. And then, so Newsom's going to come out and say, look, DeSantis is not loyal. How do you trust a man that wasn't loyal to the guy that helped him become a governor? Without Trump, DeSantis would.
He would say that?
I think he would say that, and then he would say, but look how loyal Newsom was to the very end to Biden. I think that is a good storyline for them to redirect the world. Now, listen, I'm purely speculating, but it is what it is.
I don't think there's any value in being loyal to Biden, especially as time comes on and more corruption get exposed. I do not think that there's any value in that. I don't think they're going to do that. If I had to guess, Biden steps down due to a variety of reasons. Health reasons, age, he can't do it anymore, and then the corruption. The massive amounts of corruption. It depends on how far the Republicans pursue this and how much traction they get, but the massive amount of corruption that's available. I feel like if this was Trump that was in office, every single newspaper would be talking about it nonstop. They'd be screaming for him to be removed from office.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. How they get away with it now, when you're hearing everybody from the other say how they're weaponizing the justice system to eliminate a candidate. I don't know if you're following what Vivek said yesterday. He came out and he says, look, I want to compete against Trump, but not by using something like this and what they're doing on the other side. All I'm saying is, if Newsom shows that he's being respectful of Biden, because what is your theory of why DeSantis is not having momentum? What do you think about when you think about DeSantis?
Trump. He doesn't have the personality. I just don't think he can compete with Trump. Trump has just this cult behind him. I mean, these people that love Trump, he's their hero. And the things that he says, the bombastic personality, the way he can control a room, the way he speaks in an arena of screaming fans, and makes people laugh and says things that they want to hear. DeSantis can't do that. I mean, he did a great job with Florida, and people loved his position as a governor in Florida, but I feel like he's fucking that up.
You think he should have ran?
No.
Oh, so you don't even think he should have ran?
I don't think he can beat Trump. As long as Trump doesn't get arrested, as long as he's been indicted again, and who knows where that goes. But if Trump's not in jail, he can't beat him.
Yeah.
And the people that love Trump, they feel like this is a witch hunt. And they feel like all the things he's getting indicted for are bullshit anyway. Not only does it not work, but it kind of hardens their position that he's being targeted. And that these are like the actions of a banana republic. You take your political rival and you arrest him. And specifically, you charge him with things that you're fucking guilty of. Like the documents, like the classified documents. Biden's guilty of the exact same issue.
You gotta respect the level of deceptiveness that's been used. I mean, look at what Hillary did, going and saying, hey, it's Russia, but it was really, what she was doing, and now they're using a similar play as well. I don't know. Did you ever, because I remember when I was when we were there at the show, was it in Jacksonville? You were performing and it was UFC, all of it combined together. I think DeSantis was there watching, right?
Yeah.
I think he came to the show. Did you and him ever talk about him getting on the show, or no? You guys?
I talked to him. I said hi to him.
Okay.
Met him.
But you've never invited him to be on the show? Okay. Here's what I'll tell you from my experience with his camp, which is kind of weird for me. So everybody you speak to from Vivek's camp, RFK's camp, Trump's camp, like this, they get back to you. They'll just get back to you. Here's what's going on. Here's where we are. Every time you try to get a hold of anybody from DeSantis' camp, good luck. And by the way, it doesn't matter if it's like, we go and we meet with them in Tallahassee. I sit down and I meet him and his wife, Casey, rock star. Casey's something else. And DeSantis is a genius when it comes down to policies and all that stuff, but maybe not a marketer. Whether it's Christina, whether it's this other guy calls me the other day saying, hey, they're telling me you're having a hard time getting a hold of us. I said, no, we're not having a hard time getting a hold of anybody. You guys call, but you never call back afterwards about doing something together. So then that gets me to think, now all the interviews that he's doing with people, the first question everyone's asking is, why do you think your rating's so low? Why do you think you had to do this? Why do you think you had to do that? I think their marketing mistake was big, not coming out the gates early on. And they're suffering the consequences because he has to now answer the question he doesn't want to answer constantly. So I don't know. Then the other conversation is this guy ever going to be able to be a president? Is that ever going to happen? Is he, marketable enough to do that? No one knows. But I think their marketing team screwed up. Or imagine your handlers, people that are your handlers, okay? If I go to your handler and I say, hey, here's what we like to do something with Joe. Let's just say you and I have never had any interaction together. I'd like to pitch Joe XYZ show or do this. Okay. He says, let me get back to you. If they're professionals, there's one of two things that happens. One, he comes up to you. If he doesn't get back to me, my interpretation is Joe's not interested.
Right.
Or they forgot to follow up, okay, because they're so busy. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they forget to follow up. But if it happens 3 different camps, it's not the team. You don't want to do a lot of these tough long-form interviews. So I don't know. This is going to be a very interesting election cycle to see what will happen. I don't think a lot of people think Joe's going to be there at the end.
Also, Kamala, what do they do with her?
Oh, my God.
If he steps down, what do they do with her? Do people demand that she runs? I
think one person will lose their minds if Joe steps down. One person would absolutely lose her shit. You know who that is?
Who?
Hillary.
Yeah.
She's not the first. Kamala becomes the first president. If he steps down before,
right,
or if he finishes, I mean that's some crazy stuff right there.
Yeah, I just can't imagine the United States wants President Kamala Harris. I don't think anybody wants that. Nobody wants that. I mean, maybe some people would prefer that over President Trump, but nobody wants that. And nobody wants President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. The guy's a fucking con man. I mean, everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids, when it was totally unnecessary, to being caught out in public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors.
Yeah.
All of it. It's just, nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician. Just a stone-cold, narrative-driven politician. And it's nobody thinks he's a real human. Whether you like Trump or not, whether you think he's corrupt or not, that's a human being. You know what that guy is. Same thing with RFK Jr. whether you believe that he's correct about vaccines or whether you believe his policies would be effective. And you know that's a human being. With Newsom, you've got like this construct, this cardboard cutout of a person. It's just, I don't think people want that. But they might want it more than they want President Trump. And that's where we got Joe Biden. We didn't get Joe Biden because Joe Biden's amazing. Joe Biden's been a goof his whole fucking career. He's always been a goof. He's been caught lying so many times.
Yeah.
He's so full of shit. There's so much evidence that he's corrupt. Just undeniable evidence of corruption. And the stuff with him and his son, and then the guy who just testified that was business partners with Hunter, who talked about all the different things that Joe was involved with.
Evan Archer.
Yeah. It's fucking undeniable. And the fact that mainstream news is ignoring this, except for right-wing media, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, but on the back end, when they flip, they're all united when they flip. Meaning,
if they go after him, like they did with Cuomo.
Exactly. So to me, Andrew Cuomo is a case study of what's about to come. Like, it's a conversation where whoever that guy is, there's got to be a guy that makes the phone call, right? That guy can talk to him. And they say, Joe, it's time. We got to figure something out, and you got to step away. And we're going to protect your legacy. Netflix has already agreed to do a massive 4-part series documentary on your life. And we got you a $30 million deal with Simon & Schuster, okay? And outside of that, you're good, you're scored away, you're going to get this award, you're going to get that award, and your wife's going to get this, and you're going to get this, and you don't have to worry about pardon, all this, but you got to step away. That person's going to make the phone call, especially to the people when you're part of the establishment. That person can't make the phone call to the anti-establishment people, but that person can make the phone call to the establishment people, and he's full-blown establishment, 50 years if you want to, 60 years. The Newsom thing is a little bit interesting. I think Newsom is 10 times more marketable than Biden. When Newsom went on Hannity, I don't know if you saw it or not, most people said Newsom won. And oh my God, it was, he did a very good job representing himself as a politician. First of all, what you're doing is you're going in enemy territory, Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity is a Trump guy, so you're willing to go to anybody and you go to him. You didn't go to somebody that's a little safer. You went straight to him. And afterwards, everyone's like, Newsom showed up, he did this, he did that. So if Newsom takes a page out of Trump's playbook to go against opposition, he shows strength. Democrats are just going to get behind somebody, and they got a behemoth of a machine to start talking about why he's such a hero, why he's such a this, why he's so noble. So, the other part, Joe, that RFK is confusing a lot of these guys, RFK and Vivek. What are the two guys doing? They're going on podcasts. They're going everywhere.
Yeah.
And some of these guys are not realizing the power of you yet, the power of the podcast model, the power of Friedman's, the power of going and talking to the people because it's digital. I'm looking at the video here, 15-minute clip, 5-minute clip, Twitter short clip. So I think this could be the first case study where mainstream media for an election, this could be the last one where they have a little bit of an advantage. I think it's about to be done for them.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, it's a terrible format. I mean, mainstream media has always been hampered by the fact they have ads every 7 minutes. It's always been. Every conversation is only allowed to have a certain amount of depth to it because you can't expand on things. If you have like something very complicated to discuss, you need to let someone talk without any interruption, and then there needs to be some back and forth. That takes time. It takes a long time for someone to clearly establish when you're talking about the facts of a very important piece of policy or a very important situation that's going on in America, like say the border crisis. You can't talk about the border crisis in 5 minutes. It's super complicated. You can't talk about Title 42 in 40 minutes. You can't talk about any of these things in a short amount of time. You need hours. You need to be able to expand for hours and not be interrupted by commercial breaks. But they're hampered by that model. It's always going to be, and then they're also hampered by the fact that you don't get individual, unique voices and perspectives. You get narrative-driven, policy-driven, ideologically driven hosts who they're contained by whatever system that they're a part of. They're contained by their executives and the producers and the people behind the scenes. And they only have so much leeway for opinion. We saw that with Tucker. Tucker ventured outside of that, and he had a podcast voice on network television. So you had a guy that was saying what he believed about the intelligence agencies, about the FBI's interference into the protests of the Capitol, about Pfizer and Moderna and what they've done with the drugs, about the lab leak, about Anthony Fauci, about all these different things. Like, he essentially was treating network television like a podcast, and with great success. The number one guy on TV.
That's right.
And they kicked him off.
Yep. That's right.
They kicked him off at the top of the heap, which is just madness.
So I got a question for you. So in regards to Tucker, we're not, professional psychoanalyzers, but we're just speculating and having a conversation. When you think about Tucker, what do you think his play is? Meaning, does Tucker come across as a guy to you that wants to be the next Rupert Murdoch billionaire? Do you say, I think this guy wants to be a billionaire? That's one. Two, do you get the vibe from Tucker? It's like, look, I just want to do a podcast, be left alone. I don't want to work for anybody. I want to do my own thing, and that's it. Or three, do you get the vibes from Tucker that Tucker wants to be a Netanyahu, a Churchill, a guy that is, a journalist that's been debating everybody, has been reading every issue for the last 20, 30 years. He went through the phase of Jon Stewart sitting there on Crossfire when he had a bow tie on trying to bully him, and then he comes out and crushes everybody, Tucker does. What do you think is his play? You think it's billions? You think it's just being left alone and let me live my life? Or you think it's actually maybe he wants to make a run for 2028?
Well, what he's doing is very profitable, right? Like, what he's doing, he makes a tremendous amount of money talking about things from his perspective. I think he's going to continue to do that. Whether or not he decides to become a politician, I don't know if he has any aspirations about that. Do you?
Do you ever know when somebody does?
Yeah, when someone's involved in politics in that extent where you're talking about it constantly and you know the insides and the outsides, you know all the bullshit and all the shenanigans. Yeah, I guess you would probably have at least an idea of how you would do it differently and better. And he's also got a very popular voice. Like, if he decided to run for president, like, say if Trump, let's just make a scenario, Trump wins in 2024. He has 4 years. If Tucker went to run in 2028, he could win. He really could win, because it would be kind of carrying those policies, but also he's a sort of a no-nonsense guy who exposes bullshit in a pretty humorous way, in a very insightful and biting way. And that's what he was really good at on his television show. Yeah. And he red-pilled a lot of left-wing people. There's a lot of left-wing people during the pandemic that's like, Tucker Carlson's a propagandist and he's a piece of shit and is a right-wing asshole. And then as time went on, they're like, he's saying a lot of shit that's right. Like, why are they locking these tests? Why are they making kids wear masks? Like, is there any science to it? There's actually science that just came out recently that said wearing an N95 mask for more than an hour a day is actually bad for you. Yeah, like you could get health problems from wearing one of those fucking things all the time.
Now we're being told this stuff.
Yeah, now we're being told this.
Yeah, and then New York Times came out saying a third of the deaths could be exaggerated. I don't know if you saw that or not. Yeah.
Well, Lena Wen on CNN said she thinks the actual death rate is 30% of what they said it was. And then you have the death rates that are due to those ventilators. How many people died that would have lived because of ventilators? Then you have all the other things that could have been done. How many people could have been helped with different treatments that were made illegal or were prohibited? The treatments that were prohibited, like some of them were monoclonal antibodies, like which are absolutely effective. Like, what the fuck are they doing? Well, they had one idea, and that idea was make sure that people get vaccinated. And anything that takes away from that, including thymosin. Thymosin is a peptide that people were using to help battle COVID. Well, they made it illegal. They banned thymosin, which is, there's no negative effects of thymosin. There's no peer-reviewed data that show it's dangerous. Meanwhile, fentanyl's still legal. You can still get, they're not stopping fentanyl. it's not legal, but it's not like they're not stopping opiates. They're not stopping all these things that we know absolutely do kill people and absolutely do cause harm and absolutely are addictive. They're not going out of their way to get rid of that.
Though? Why do you think?
Because they want to make an extraordinary amount of money. The best way to make that extraordinary amount of money is to have one solution. You have one thing you can do, and you have to take this experimental vaccine that now we're finding out has massive health risks.
Yeah, it's pretty wild when you think. By the way, when you talk about Tucker, what you were doing on the podcast space, he was doing on the mainstream space.
Yes.
Like, very interesting. Now, when you think about talent, I'm sure if Fox invites you and says, "Hey, Joe, we'd love to have you on a guest for a 10-minute segment like that," I'm not doing a 10-minute segment. It's probably not going to be your style to go on Newsmax or Fox or CNN to give a 5-minute answer that you give. America doesn't want that anymore, right? And a lot of these guys that have these TV shows, for them to go from there to doing a podcast, they think it's easy. It's not for everybody. You're used to reading a teleprompter. Hey, so earlier today at 6 p.m., Devin Archer did this, right? But Tucker is comfortable there.
Right.
When he did the Iowa event with the Blaze, and he's up there interviewing everybody, boom. He goes after ISA. So, now that you know everything that you know, did you take the COVID vaccine and how do you feel about the decision?
Right.
And he says, did you take any of the vaccine? No. Mike Pence, hey, so, now that you're this, what do you think about da-da-da-da-da? Well, I'm glad you're paying attention that I'm running. Yes, but how about this, right?
Yeah.
One by one by one by one. That is very scary. It's not a duplicatable skill set for a guy like him to do,
right.
Tucker. But the key is this guy going to get the itch? Because at the Turning Point USA event with Charlie Kirk, afterwards, I'm asking everybody, and I want to know, who stole the show? Like at UFC fights, the guy get, hey, $50 bonus you're going to give? Maybe it's not the main card, but it's someone that steals the show? Okay.
Right.
It was 60-40. Trump 60-40 Tucker.
Yeah.
So it's like Tucker's coming into, but the part that he's not doing right now is, which I think is going to work in his favor, he's not going in there saying, I'm not running this time around. He comes out and says in 2028, and imagine if let's just say Trump wins and he runs 2028 and Trump's endorsing him. I mean, he could be in office for 8 years.
He could. I think no one is going to run against Trump in the Republican side and win, because you're not going to get the Trump supporters. They are all in on Trump. Unless he has a stroke, unless something happens that's horrible, they're all in on Trump. If you run against Trump, you're now the enemy of Trump. If I was friends with DeSantis, I'd be like, don't do it. You can't beat that guy. You just can't. When that guy gets out there and he's waving to people and they're going crazy, you're not beating that. There's and the fact that he was the president for 4 years and the country was in a great economic situation, and it looked like his policies were actually effective, and that it looked like the unemployment was down, all business was building, regulations were being relaxed, more things were getting done. When you look at it from a policy perspective, if you just look at it on paper, what he did was effective. A lot of people think it was effective. You don't like him as a personality, so you ignore that. Don't do that. Look at it in terms of a policy perspective. People liked the ideas that he was putting forward. And now you're saying like, oh, the wall is raised. Now the fucking everybody thinks there needs to be a wall. Even the mayor of New York City is now calling to stop immigration into his city. And this was the guy that called it for it to be a sanctuary state. When the reality of what your policies, what kind of actions you put forth, what the results of that are, and those results are highly negative, you're forced to sort of recollect your thoughts and come up with a new perspective. And that's what the mayor of New York City is doing right now. When you just look at what Trump's policies were, and then obviously COVID hits, there's a lot to that, the lockdowns, the economic collapse, all the shit that came with that. None of that is good. And then Trump holds up this like hope to bring us back to where we were when he was in office. You're not going to beat that. I don't think they're going to beat that. I don't think when you look at the Russia collusion, when you look at the Steele dossier, when you look at all the bullshit they tried to throw at him that we now know is bullshit, not just bullshit, but coordinated bullshit. When you look at the fact that they suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story and that 51 intelligence agency representatives signed off on that to say that this was Russian disinformation, which they know is not true. That's scary because now you have the intelligence agencies colluding to keep a guy from being president that was president during a time where the country was thriving economically. You're not going to beat that guy.
Would he get your vote?
He'd get my vote before, excuse me, he'd get my vote before Biden. I said that before. I don't think that, I never thought that Biden was going to make it. I never thought that he was going to be functional. You know, like regardless of what kind of power the president actually has. And it appears under Trump, the president has a lot more power than we think they do. But under Biden, it's like he's handled. Like he's just out there talking and say, the real problem is Donald Trump. Donald Trump, what he's done is terrible. He did in the office. It's all nonsense. It's like everyone's treating him with kid gloves because they don't want to prop up Trump. They don't want to go after him because it'll weaken the Democratic Party.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.